Indian ink, not Ideologue, but Exemplar. Why Meenakshi Jain's Rajya Sabha nomination matters. Exactly a month back, when Meenakshi Jain was nominated to the Rajya Sabha, I was immensely gratified. That is because, at long last, a genuine scholar, academic, and historian had been picked to occupy a slot so designated. Whatever political considerations might have informed such a choice, they are far less significant than the weight of her work and integrity of purpose. A disclaimer, albeit fortunate, I readily admit to knowing Dr. Jain for over 20 years as a colleague and friend. But I have known her even better through her work, whose singularity and sincerity mark her out from most of her peers. To put it bluntly, she is not an academic racketeer or profiteer. Not that everyone in our field is, but sadly, our system is such that those who are closer to power centers and better at managing people, rather than real academics or intellectuals, tend to flourish. Simply put, they are good at the preferment and patronage game. But Meenakshi Ji is an exception. It is for this reason that I call her an exemplar rather than an ideologue, a distinction driven home by the late Professor K.J. Shah, formerly the philosophy don at Karnataka University, Dharwad. Professor Shah told me that the Indian intellectual tradition, as indeed our spiritual parampara, was driven by exemplars, not ideologues, who or what is an exemplar? It is someone who demonstrates a consistency in their unabove experience, Vichar thought, and Akar conduct. For Shah, Mahatma Gandhi, yes, I dare to continue to call him that, was the true exemplar of our times. Why? Because his life, and as I have argued, his death too, was transparently and amply inconsistent with experience, thought, and deed fully consought, although constantly evolving and changing. I bring in Gandhi because it was he who, with Hind Swaraj 1909, inaugurated what one might term Swaraj in ideas, although the phrase was popularized later. The one to do so was the great philosopher, Krishna Chandra Bhattacharya, in his famous 1928 lecture with that title. Obviously, Atmanirbhar Bharat has deep roots not only in our ancient, but also in our recent past. Of the post-independence historians who held the torch for Swaraj in ideas, too, because of the volume and value of their contributions, come instantly to mind Dharmapal and Sita Ram Goel. What is more, they worked from outside the academy, unsupported by the governments of the day. Yet, they persisted decade after decade to create the foundation for the reclamation of our civilizational center. The nationalist school of scholarship and historiography is better known by other notable figures such as Jadunath Sarkar and R.C. Majumdar. Arun Shourie, who has just published a stinging riposte to the current adulation of Veer Savarkar, also arguably belongs in this galaxy of thought leaders and changemakers. Yet another reason to mention the very different authors is that they cannot be simply subsumed or reduced to the Hindutva school of historiography, which Savarkar inaugurated with the Indian War of Independence. Incidentally, this path-breaking tome was published the same year as Gandhi's Hind Swaraj. The two books, as I show in my forthcoming work, Hindutva and Hind Swaraj, do have one big thing in common, however much they might differ in their approaches. Both want Swaraj for India. Meenakshi Jain's work, too, cannot be collapsed or contained in the Hindutva template. It is much more academically rigorous, relying on sources, documents, and evidence, than politics. Rama and Ayodhya 2013, The Battle for Rama, Case of the Temple at Ayodhya 2017, Vasudeva Krishna and Mathura 2021, and, more recently, Vishwanath Rises and Rises the Story of Eternal Kashi 2024 are documentary than ideological. But they supply solid evidential ballast for several far-reaching interpretations which support both Hindutva and the far-reaching interventions of the current regime. Of her many books, The Flight of Deities and Rebirth of Temples Episodes from Indian History 2019 is a must-read for its deeper civilizational import. Regardless of how many times anti-Sanatanis, mostly Muslim invaders and conquerors, but also Christian Portuguese and French rulers, among others, destroyed Hindu shrines and temples, Hindus always rebuilt them whenever they had the resources or the strength. Meenakshi ji has thus struck the profound, even ahistoric bedrock of Dharma. Though the iconoclasts believed contrarily, Sanatani stamina exceeded theirs at least in Bharatvarsha. It is no surprise that for much of her life, Meenakshi ji was shut out from the hallowed portals of the history departments of both Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University. She taught at Gargi College, rising to the comparatively humble rank of associate professor. As a point of fact, although a historian by inclination and aptitude, her PhD is in political science. Our official historians policed their terrain rather ruthlessly. No wonder much of the recent path-breaking work in the discipline has come from outside the academy. Undergraduate college teaching, however, affords less time or resources for serious research. Sustaining herself through furloughs and fellowships, Meenakshi ji finally took premature retirement. Her most fecund and influential recent decade thus flowered because she quit the academy. Indeed, after flawed narratives history in the old cert textbooks, a random survey of Satish Chandra's Medieval India 2000, exposing the narrative rot in cert history books, she was a marked woman. It was the point of no return, demonstrating her courage to walk alone. Similarly, her resignation, along with Michel Danino, from the Sarkari Muddledom, or should we say blunderdom, of Indian Council of Historical Research ICHR, when the BJP was very much in power at the center, is also a testament to her academic integrity. Swipe left for next video. The elisions, omissions, denials, and, yes, utter falsehoods in history writing that Jain has documented in her long innings have become commonplace tropes in right-wing social media, academic, and political circles. However, when she embarked upon this path, it was an incredibly brave and risky thing to do. Today, her work has been recognized as an important aid to our self-understanding and, in fact, the self-understanding of a nation and a civilization. Mukrund R. Paranjape, author and public intellectual, is currently Sri Aurobindo Chair, Vidyar University Director of Education, AHCP LLC. Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the author. They do not necess